The stars above the outer rim burned with an indifferent brilliance, indifferent to the tiny disturbances of sentient life beneath them. A ripple in hyperspace tore through the darkness, unseen by the scanners of any nearby Imperial outpost or rebel probe. One moment, the void between systems was calm. The next, a jagged shaft of energy flared across the horizon, carving a streak of impossible light through the sky. It slammed into the atmosphere of a barren, rocky world, leaving behind a crater that smoldered with faint residual heat. From the center of the explosion, a figure rose unscathed, his orange GI streaked with dust, spines of black hair bristling as he blinked against the unfamiliar sun. This was Son Goku, warrior of Earth, stranger to this galaxy, yet instinctively aware of the life forms around him. Humans, aliens, and creatures whose presence radiated curiosity and danger alike. No ship had delivered him here, no hyperspace lane guided him. He had arrived through a rift he could barely comprehend, pulled by an energy signal that had promised a challenge far beyond his own universe. His body hummed with power, fists clenched, ready for anything or anyone who might appear. The planet beneath him was harsh, arid, a test of survival that reminded him faintly of his childhood home, though the suns burned hotter than any he had ever known. Still, even the fierce heat of Tatooine-like sunlight could not diminish the flow of ki coursing through him. Yet he felt something strange, something subtle. The presence of a pervasive energy surrounding all life. The Force, he would later learn, shifted the rhythm of his power in unexpected ways. It was not weakness, not defeat, but a peculiar resonance that demanded adaptation. Above the horizon, Imperial patrol ships detected the rift's disruption. Sensors screamed of a massive energy spike unlike anything in known star charts. Commander Cale Varros, veteran of a dozen Outer Rim campaigns, ordered weapons locked. Unknown energy signature approaching surface. Prepare for engagement, he barked into his comlink. Moments later, the first TIE fighters tore through the dusty sky, streaking toward the source with calculated precision. To the Imperials, the figure standing in the crater was a threat, a living weapon beyond their comprehension. Goku, meanwhile, had been scanning the terrain. The strange readings, tiny, hovering sensors, distant metallic contractions, provoked a grin. Finally, some action, he muttered under his breath, crouching low. His senses picked up on the rapidly approaching fighters, faster than anything his eyes could track, but his instincts never failed. With a burst of energy, he leaped skyward, leaving a glowing afterimage in his wake. Blasters fired, streaks of red cutting through the air, and Goku's first taste of the Star Wars galaxy's combat came not from a battlefield, but from a misunderstanding. The TIE fighters swooped close, attempting formation attack runs. He dodged effortlessly, feeling the alien physics of this world tug against him. The flow of ki was constant, but the atmospheric density and solar radiation of this system shifted his speed subtly. Adjusting, he accelerated, weaving through the strafing fire. Each shot that would have found him in any other universe disintegrated harmlessly against his instantaneous reflexes. Then, with a measured exhale, he retaliated, not with lethality, not yet, for this was a world he had not come to conquer, but with controlled energy blasts, deflecting the fighters with pulsing waves of ki. One TIE spun out of control, crashing into a nearby rock formation, a plume of fire marking the first casualty of this encounter. In the midst of this chaos, Goku's attention caught another presence, a subtle, almost imperceptible signature of life. Unlike the mechanical precision of the Imperial fighters, this energy was fluid, calm, and yet undeniably powerful. A Jedi, perhaps, or something like it. The energy seemed to call to them, curious but cautious. Goku crouched, sensing this new form, and a grin spread across his face. "How you've got some power," he said softly, not knowing whether the being was friend or foe. His instinct was to fight, to test the limits, but something about the fluidity of this energy invited observation first. The Rebel Alliance, ever vigilant for threats to the galaxy, had also detected the anomaly. On a distant satellite outpost, a communications officer relayed the incident in real time. "We've got readings on an unknown combatant, extremely high power levels," she whispered to her commanding officer. The rebel cell debated. Was this a new weapon of the Empire, a rogue force user, or something else entirely? One officer argued that they should intervene immediately, while another urged caution. "We don't know what he's capable of. We don't even know if he's sentient in a way we understand." Meanwhile, Goku leapt across canyons, his senses alive with a strange mix of hostility and curiosity. He had faced gods, demons, and intergalactic tyrants before, yet this galaxy's rules were alien. Blaster bolts sizzled through the air, droids clanked in distant factories, and the oppressive hum of Imperial engines filled the valleys. His laughter rang out, echoing through the rocky terrain. This is gonna be fun. He did not yet understand the Empire, the rebels, or the Force itself, but he knew one thing. If there was someone or something strong out here, he wanted to meet them. As night fell, twin suns dipping below jagged mountains, Goku paused on a cliffside overlooking the crater from which he had emerged. Smoke rose in tendrils, and distant Imperial fire patrols searched for him. In the darkening light, his aura flared faintly, visible only to those with the perception to sense energy beyond normal comprehension. He flexed his fingers, testing gravity, atmospheric pressure, the pull of this galaxy on his ki. "All right," he said, voice low. "Let's see what this place has to offer." It was then that the first subtle hints of the Force began to register, not as danger, but as possibility. Creatures and beings across the galaxy, connected in ways he could not yet fathom, resonated faintly with his own energy. He would learn, over time, to harness and respect it, perhaps even integrate his ki with the currents of this mysterious power. But for now, the galaxy was new, dangerous, and thrilling, and Goku, ever the adventurer, was ready to carve his place in its stars. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The next morning dawned harsh and unforgiving over the jagged landscapes of the Outer Rim planet. Goku's arrival had left the local wildlife scattered and unsettled, small lizards and burrowing creatures fleeing the crater as he practiced rapid bursts of movement across the rocky plains. He had already begun testing his limits, leaping higher than the tallest cliffs, diving into deep canyons, and feeling the tug of gravity subtly shift beneath his feet. Though his ki was strong, he noticed small, unfamiliar disruptions, an energy in the air that felt almost alive, pulsating through the planet's surface. It was different from anything he had ever encountered in his own universe. The Force. Whatever this was, it interacted with his power, bending and stretching it in ways that excited and challenged him simultaneously. Goku's early exploration did not go unnoticed. Imperial scanners, despite being limited in their sensitivity to ki, detected residual energy readings at the crash site. A squadron of TIE interceptors descended from orbit, engines whining with calculated precision. Commander Calvaros, undeterred by the previous day's failure, ordered a more aggressive strategy. "Surround the area," he barked, "and bring the target down. No excuses." The pilots, trained to annihilate small rebel cells and starships, were ill-prepared for what they faced. From behind a jagged rock formation, Goku launched himself into the sky, evading their volleys with astonishing agility, leaving streaks of golden light in his wake. He dodged each attack effortlessly, his body moving in perfect synchrony with instinct and will, yet he did not retaliate lethally. This was a test, a puzzle to be solved, a universe to explore, not a battlefield to conquer. Below, on a remote ridge, a lone figure observed the chaos. Jedi Master Elarate, cloaked and calm, felt the disturbance in the Force as soon as it registered. The presence was unusual. It pulsed with energy, yet it was not aligned with the light or dark side in any discernible way. This stranger, this Goku, radiated raw power, tempered by curiosity and a sense of morality unlike most Force-sensitive beings she had encountered. She debated approaching him. Masters of the Jedi Order had faced Sith Lords, Warlords, and Rogue Force users, but never had she felt a presence quite like this. And yet, caution demanded patience. The Rebel Alliance also continued to monitor the situation. A small scout ship, the Hulkrider, navigated toward the impact site, piloted by Lieutenant Kaya Rel and her crew of 3. Reports had come in from local Outer Rim systems. An orange-clad warrior capable of feats that dwarfed the most skilled mercenaries, who had fought Imperial patrols with unnatural speed and precision. The rebels were torn. Could they trust him? Or was he simply another weapon the Empire had engineered, and they would find themselves facing annihilation if they misjudged his intent? Goku, for his part, had begun to experiment with the strange energy he sensed throughout the terrain. With a thought, he lifted massive boulders, feeling the weight of the planet against him, and realized that while he retained near-complete mastery over his ki, this galaxy's ambient energy, its force, interacted unpredictably with his attacks. A small flash of light ignited in his palm when he attempted a Kamehameha, and the resulting energy wave scattered nearby rocks more violently than intended. He chuckled to himself. Interesting. This world plays by slightly different rules. I like that. He had not felt challenged in this way for years, and the thrill invigorated him. Imperial pursuit intensified. The second wave of TIE fighters arrived in coordinated formations, attempting to trap him within the canyon walls. Commander Varos had adjusted tactics, predicting that the first failed strike had been due to Goku's unpredictability. They tried to corner him, aiming to restrict his flight paths and force a surrender. Goku, laughing, pivoted midair, spinning with breathtaking speed, striking one fighter with a punch that sent it spinning out of control. Blaster fire scorched nearby cliffs, leaving scars across the rocky landscape. The Imperials realized, with dawning fear, that conventional weapons were futile. This was not a threat they could neutralize with firepower alone. From above, Jedi Master Alara descended silently, her ship weaving through the canyon as she tried to intercept without alarming the Imperials or the rebels. Her mission was to understand this stranger, gauge whether he was a threat, and, if possible, guide him toward restraint. She landed gracefully, lightsaber ignited, but lowered in a gesture of peace. The force hummed in her chest as she stepped forward. "You are far from your world, stranger," she said calmly, voice carrying authority and curiosity. "I am Master Alara Te of the Jedi Order. Your power, it is unlike anything I have sensed." Goku paused, tilting his head with a grin. "Jedi, huh? Cool. You've got some energy, I can feel it. But don't worry, I'm not here to hurt anyone. Well, not unless they make me." He raised his palms, demonstrating an openness that contrasted sharply with the chaos of the previous skirmish. Despite his confidence, he noticed the subtle currents of the Force that tugged at him, alien yet familiar, like a puzzle begging to be solved. The Imperials, unwilling to recognize the Jedi's authority, opened fire again. This time, Ilara used the Force to deflect the shots, sending them scattering harmlessly into the canyon walls. Goku dodged the occasional stray blaster bolt for fun, giggling as he spun midair. "You guys sure like shooting a lot," he said. "You should try sparring instead. It's way more fun." He leapt toward the Imperials, landing in a controlled descent, kicking aside a TIE fighter that had landed too close to the canyon floor. His power was overwhelming, yet he restrained himself, testing limits, observing reactions, and learning quickly. Meanwhile, the rebels approached cautiously. Lieutenant Kaya's team hovered at the edge of the battle zone, trying to assess Goku's intentions. The scout ship's sensors indicated energy signatures far beyond anything they had cataloged. Kaya spoke over the comms, voice tinged with both fear and excitement. He's not an Imperial weapon. He's something else. Something strong. Maybe we can use this." The moral dilemma of whether to recruit a stranger of incomprehensible power weighed heavily on them. As the day progressed, Goku's curiosity shifted to observation. He tested the landscape, the creatures, and the abilities of those around him. The Force-sensitive presence intrigued him most. "You feel different," he said to Alara, sensing her calm but powerful aura. "You've got energy too, like me, but it's weird. Kind of cool, actually." Ilara regarded him carefully, recognizing the difficulty of explaining the Force to someone whose own energy flowed from a completely different origin. She would have to teach, guide, and perhaps learn herself from this unique being. By evening, the Imperials had withdrawn, shaken by their inability to overcome him. The rebels had gained an uneasy appreciation for his potential, and Goku, standing atop a ridge, watched twin suns set behind jagged mountains, feeling the thrill of a galaxy full of new challenges, allies, and threats. He had landed unexpectedly, yet already he sensed that his presence would change the balance of power, not through conquest, but through sheer unpredictability and an unshakable sense of justice. In the quiet, as stars began to pierce the twilight, Goku smiled. The galaxy was big, complex, and full of life he had never imagined. He could already feel the threads of future battles, friendships, and moral dilemmas weaving themselves into a tapestry that stretched across systems. And he was ready. The morning after Goku's arrival, the outer rim planet was still humming with residual energy from the rift, the air thick with a strange vibrational tension. Goku had spent hours leaping across craggy cliffs and desolate valleys, testing his limits against gravity, solar radiation, and the alien flora that clung stubbornly to life in the harsh environment. Every movement of his ki seemed to ripple against an invisible current, something he could not fully control but instinctively sensed. This was the Force, elusive yet omnipresent. Unlike anything he had encountered before, it tugged at his energy in waves, subtle at first, then more pronounced as he approached the ruins of an ancient settlement scattered across the high plateaus. It was here that he first felt the unmistakable pull of a living Force user. Unlike the raw, chaotic energy of battle, this presence radiated calm and awareness, like water flowing around obstacles. Goku's ears twitched. His senses, honed over years of training in battle, detected a faint humming that corresponded with the being's focus. Curious, he approached cautiously, bounding across stone terraces with surprising silence for a warrior of his size and strength. The Jedi Master Ilarate, having tracked his movement through the Force, had positioned herself in the ruins' shadowed corridors, awaiting the stranger. Her lightsaber rested at her hip, unignited, a symbol of peace and readiness. "You are far from home, stranger," Ilara said softly, stepping into the clearing, her presence commanding yet non-threatening. "I am Master Ilara Te of the Jedi Order. Your power, it is unlike anything I have felt before. Tell me what drives you." Her voice carried a melodic cadence, layered with the weight of experience and the subtle hum of the Force. She did not rush, did not challenge. Instead, she sought understanding, a way to gauge whether this being would become ally or adversary. Goku cocked his head, grinning. "Drive? I guess I like fighting strong opponents, seeing how far I can push myself. And I like helping people too, though I didn't exactly plan on coming here," he said, scratching the back of his head. "One moment I was chasing a weird energy, the next, well, this." He gestured vaguely at the alien landscape, the ruined structures, and the distant Imperial patrols. "So this is your Force thing, huh? I can feel it. Kind of like my ki, but different." Ilara's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Jedi taught her to read intentions through the Force, to sense emotion, danger, and purpose. This stranger, however, defied categorization. His energy was alive, vibrant, and morally untethered, yet not corrupt. No dark side taint lingered, no obsessive control. There was potential, of course, but also unpredictability, a challenge even for Jedi wisdom. "Your energy is raw, untrained in this galaxy," she said carefully. "And yet it resonates with the living Force. You are not bound to light or dark, but your actions will influence both." As the conversation unfolded, distant alarms sounded. Imperial ships, relentless and methodical, had detected unusual energy spikes emanating from the planet. Commander Varos, frustrated by the failure of conventional weapons, now called in additional reinforcements. "Prepare for orbital bombardment," he ordered. "If we cannot bring him down, we will level the area. Do not underestimate this anomaly." The threat, though distant at the moment, added urgency to the encounter. Goku's brow furrowed. Whoa, wait, you guys are gonna shoot this whole place up. That doesn't sound very fun. Guess I'll have to step in. He clenched his fists, aura flaring, sending subtle vibrations through the ruins. The force around Alara shifted in response, curious, probing, trying to understand how this outsider's ki interacted with the galaxy's energy. His power, while immense, was untrained in the nuances of the force, yet the potential for synergy was clear. The Imperials moved faster than anticipated. TIE fighters sliced through the upper atmosphere, blasters charging, scanning for the energy source. Goku, sensing the incoming threat, leapt skyward with astonishing speed. His body moved as if the very air obeyed his will, dodging laser fire in elegant arcs. He landed atop a ruined watchtower, pivoting gracefully to deflect a barrage of bolts with precise energy blasts, scattering metal fragments across the courtyard. Each movement was a dance of raw strength tempered by instinct, the force tugging at him faintly, guiding him in ways his ki could not fully predict. Alara remained grounded, raising her lightsaber to intercept the first strays of blaster fire. "Careful," she cautioned, sensing the potential for destruction. "You do not fully understand the consequences of your actions here. Collateral damage can sway hearts, inspire fear, and shift the balance of power. Even a warrior of your skill must learn restraint." Goku nodded, eyes bright with excitement and curiosity. "Got it. Don't worry. I like helping people. I won't let anyone get hurt if I can help it." The tension escalated further when a small contingent of rebels arrived, having tracked the energy signature through subspace communications. Lieutenant Kyrell, cautious but determined, hovered near the periphery with the scout ship Hawkrider. "That's him," she whispered to her crew. "That's the one causing all the energy spikes. But he's not attacking us. Maybe we can talk to him." The moral gamble was obvious. Goku's immense power could decimate both Empire and local rebel forces, yet his cheerful, curious nature suggested he might be persuaded to cooperate, or at least observe. A delicate dance began. Goku, Jedi rebels, and Imperials all maneuvered around one another, testing boundaries and gauging reactions. Each blaster volley, each subtle force push, each display of ki created ripples that affected every faction's perception. The Imperials grew more desperate, realizing that the usual tactics would fail. Alara focused on guiding Goku subtly, ensuring that his response would minimize unnecessary harm. The rebels watched, weighing trust against fear, while Goku laughed and trained, finding joy in testing his speed and strength against the strange, alien technology surrounding him. By the end of the day, the Imperials had retreated temporarily, reassessing strategy. Goku stood atop the highest ridge, surveying the chaos he had inadvertently caused. Alara approached quietly, her presence serene but firm. "You are capable of greatness," she said, "and danger. But the choices you make here will echo far beyond this world. Will you act as a force for protection, or as a weapon without restraint?" Goku's smile widened, eyes gleaming with the thrill of new challenge. Guess we'll find out. This galaxy's got some tough folks, and I like that. But don't worry, I'll do my best to keep it fun for everyone. His laughter rang out across the canyon, a promise and a warning alike. A new force had entered the Star Wars galaxy, one whose power and unpredictability could reshape everything. By the following day, word of the orange-clad warrior had spread across the outer rim like wildfire. Rebel scouts had transmitted reports of his unparalleled strength, agility, and seemingly limitless energy, sparking heated debates within the cells scattered across nearby systems. Lieutenant Kyrell and her crew were assigned to monitor Goku more closely, debating whether to attempt communication or to simply observe from a distance. "If we can reach him," Kaya murmured, scanning the holomap, "we might gain an ally who could change the balance of power. But if we misstep, the Empire will see him as a weapon, and then no one survives." Goku, for his part, had begun wandering farther from the initial crash site, drawn by curiosity and the thrill of testing his abilities. Every hill, canyon, and abandoned settlement offered new challenges, but also the faint, pervasive pull of the Force that intrigued him. It was unlike his ki. It was everywhere, subtle, but with weight and intent. He could sense beings before he saw them, read tension and calm alike. Yet the language of this energy remained foreign. And yet he instinctively respected it, his pure-hearted nature preventing reckless abuse. "How this place is weird," he muttered, crouching to leap over a narrow gorge. "But kind of awesome." His first close encounter with the Empire came sooner than expected. A squad of stormtroopers, dispatched by Commander Varos to investigate the energy anomalies, had traced Goku's movements to a canyon system bordered by jagged cliffs. They moved in coordinated lines, weapons raised, disciplined and unyielding, confident that sheer numbers could overwhelm any opponent. Goku's grin widened as he observed their formation. "All right, let's see how strong you guys really are." In a burst of speed, he launched into the air, landing among the troopers with a controlled but devastating force. Blaster bolts met his body in mid-motion, but he bent, dodged, and deflected with a combination of sheer reflex and the faint guidance of the Force. A single punch sent several armored soldiers tumbling down a rocky slope, their cries swallowed by the canyon's echo. From a nearby ridge, Jedi Master Alara watched with a mixture of awe and concern. "He does not yet understand our conventions," she said, sensing the ethical and political ramifications of his actions. Though his intentions are pure, his interference will ripple across the galaxy. The Empire will perceive him as a threat, and the rebels may see him as salvation or liability. We must guide him before both sides escalate further. She reached out with the Force subtly, nudging his perceptions, helping him anticipate trajectories and minimizing casualties. Goku noticed the strange guidance, but interpreted it as part of the planet's ambient energy. He laughed, flipping over a fallen boulder to dodge blaster fire. Feels like someone's trying to play with me. Cool. Meanwhile, the rebel cell observed from a distance. Kaya Rel's crew whispered among themselves. "He's fighting them, but he isn't killing them," one said, marveling at the control. "He could destroy their whole squadron if he wanted to." Kayet nodded. "Exactly. That's why we have to convince him, not attack him. We can't risk him turning his strength against us by accident, or letting the Empire manipulate him." They debated strategies, weighing diplomacy against necessity, each aware of the fine line between recruiting an ally and provoking a catastrophic incident. As Goku engaged the Imperial troops, another presence entered the fray, a group of bounty hunters, led by the infamous Twi'lek mercenary Lyz Varen, hired by shadowy underworld contacts who had intercepted rumors of Goku's arrival. They sought to capture or eliminate him for substantial credits. Their ships swooped in, and specialized weapons designed to neutralize superhuman targets were deployed. Goku's grin only widened. Now this is getting interesting. He darted between fire and motion with incredible speed, intercepting energy nets and grappling hooks midair, each movement precise and playful. Yet he restrained the full force of his attacks. The hunters were dangerous, but his goal was a challenge, not slaughter. Alara, sensing the potential for catastrophic escalation, moved quickly. "Stranger," she called to them. "These individuals are not here for combat or justice. They seek profit. Aid them, and their violence will spread further. Resist them, and we must contain the fallout." Goku tilted his head, processing the guidance. Though he had little concept of currency or mercenary contracts, his sense of justice was clear. "Got it. Don't worry, I'll stop them, but I'm not going to hurt them more than I have to. Just enough to teach them a lesson." The clash that followed was chaotic but measured. Goku used his speed, strength, and ki to neutralize the bounty hunter's attacks without lethal force. Grappling hooks snagged nothing but air. Energy traps disintegrated harmlessly against his aura. Vehicles crumpled under controlled blows. The hunters were stunned, both by his power and his restraint. Lyz Varen, panting and shaken, realized that this was no ordinary opponent. "This isn't normal," she muttered to her team. "We're outmatched. Pull back before it gets worse." Their retreat was rapid, leaving scorched terrain and damaged ships in their wake. The battle had drawn attention across the system. Rebel scouts transmitted live data to nearby cells, debating whether Goku should be persuaded to ally with them. Meanwhile, the Imperials regrouped, frustrated by the failure of both stormtroopers and hired mercenaries. Commander Varro's obsession deepened. "We will find a way," he vowed. "He is a weapon that must be ours, or destroyed. No anomaly goes unchecked." His strategists discussed superweapons, trap worlds, and energy-dampening devices. But each plan was tempered by the reality that no conventional technology could match this stranger's raw, adaptive power. By nightfall, Goku had climbed to the top of a ridge, overlooking the expanse of the planet. He could feel the faint pull of the Force again, the distant presence of Jedi and other life forms. The experience had been exhilarating, a mixture of battle, strategy, and moral challenge. He had confronted the Empire and the criminal underworld, tested his abilities against the galaxy's defenders and predators, and begun to understand the complex web of forces at play. Ilara joined him quietly, the Force guiding her steps. "You have potential, stranger, but power without understanding is dangerous," she said. "This galaxy is not your battlefield alone. Choices you make here affect countless lives. Will you fight for them, with them, or for yourself?" Goku smiled, a playful glint in his eye, yet a note of seriousness underlined his tone. I don't know yet. But I do know one thing. I'm not going to sit around and do nothing. If people need help, I'll do what I can. And if someone's being bad, well, I can't let that slide either." The stars above shimmered as the twin moons rose, casting long shadows across the canyon floor. In the distance, the faint lights of Imperial and Rebel patrols flickered like distant candles, each unaware of the full scope of Goku's abilities. For the first time since his arrival, he paused, taking in the galaxy before him. Battles would come, choices would weigh heavily, and alliances would form or shatter. But one thing was certain. The galaxy had never seen a warrior like him, and it would never be the same. The following morning, Goku's understanding of this new galaxy had deepened, though only slightly. He had faced Imperial forces, bounty hunters, and sensed the presence of a Jedi, yet the scale of the challenge ahead was becoming apparent. Reports of his battles had begun to circulate among scattered rebel cells, as well as in Imperial intelligence channels, each faction interpreting the events according to their own biases. For the rebels, he was a potential savior. For the Empire, a catastrophic anomaly. And for the local underworld, either a prize or a threat. Goku, as ever, approached the situation with curiosity and excitement, eager to test his limits while learning the intricacies of these new players. A new complication arose when a small contingent of Mandalorians arrived, tracking the remnants of Imperial patrols that had engaged Goku. The warriors, clad in Beskar armor that glinted in the harsh sunlight, observed him from a ridge. Their code emphasized honor, combat prowess, and loyalty to clan rather than ideology. They had never faced someone with such speed, strength, or energy projection capabilities. The Mandalorians debated whether this stranger could be a threat to their honor or a warrior worthy of respect. Goku, noticing their presence, leapt down to meet them, landing in a crouch. His grin widened. "All right, you guys look strong. Want to spar?" The Mandalorians were taken aback. Most of their engagements involved blasters, melee combat, or dueling rivals, not someone capable of leaping hundreds of meters with a single bound and emitting energy waves from his hands. Their leader, a stoic figure named Din Varric, stepped forward. "You are no ordinary warrior," he said, voice calm but firm. "Prove your skill and your honor. Our code demands it." Goku's eyes sparkled. I like your style. Let's see what you've got." The ensuing duel was spectacular yet controlled. Goku moved with astonishing speed, intercepting strikes, deflecting vibroblades with bursts of ki, and dodging Beskar-protected blows that would have decimated lesser combatants. He laughed throughout, enjoying the challenge, yet he held back just enough to avoid unnecessary injury. The Mandalorians realized they were dealing with someone extraordinary, a being whose power dwarfed even the best warriors of their clan, yet who fought with fairness, restraint, and a palpable sense of morality. By the end of the sparring, Din Varric nodded. "You are worthy," he said, impressed by both Goku's strength and restraint. "But know this, strength alone does not define a warrior. Honor and judgment matter as much." While this demonstration unfolded, Imperial forces intensified their response. Commander Varos, desperate to assert control, had called in reinforcements, including a squadron of TIE interceptors and a contingent of specialized assault droids designed to exploit weaknesses in high-energy opponents. Goku, sensing their approach through his own energy perception and the faint tug of the Force, grinned again. "Looks like more friends to meet." He leapt skyward, weaving through blaster fire with acrobatic precision, scattering droids like leaves in the wind. Each movement displayed his mastery over ki, his adaptive strategy, and his ability to learn rapidly in the face of unfamiliar technology. The rebels, observing from the safety of a ridge, were both awed and terrified. Lieutenant Kaya Rel whispered, "He's incredible, but he's unpredictable. We have no control over him." Her crew nodded, understanding the stakes. If Goku sided with them, he could turn the tide against the Empire across multiple systems. If he sided with the Empire, or even simply acted on his own without guidance, chaos would spread unchecked. They needed to find a way to communicate, to appeal to his sense of justice, without imposing their ideology. Goku's interactions with the Mandalorians, the rebels, and even the fleeing Imperials created a complex web of potential alliances and conflicts. He was not simply a weapon to be controlled. He was a force of nature, whose choices would shape outcomes in unpredictable ways. The moral complexity was evident even to him. When one of the Mandalorians attempted a calculated strike against an Imperial droid, Goku intervened, knocking the droid out with precision energy blasts without harming the soldier. "See? That's how you fight smart," he said, chuckling. "You don't just punch everything you see." Meanwhile, in orbit, Imperial intelligence was growing increasingly frustrated. Data indicated that the stranger's power could not be contained with conventional methods. Their strategy shifted from elimination to capture, and rumors spread of experimental weapons designed to sap energy or exploit anomalies in alien physiology. Commander Varos, increasingly obsessed with controlling Goku, ordered extreme measures. "We cannot allow this entity to remain uncontained," he barked. "Failure is unacceptable. He must be brought to us, alive or dead." As the day wore on, Goku began to feel the subtle effects of the galaxy on his own energy. While his ki remained formidable, the ambient force began interacting more strongly, creating faint resonance patterns he had not anticipated. Each exertion, dodging blasters, deflecting droids, engaging Mandalorian warriors, drew slightly on his stamina, a reminder that this universe was fundamentally different from his own. He welcomed the challenge, noting it with characteristic enthusiasm rather than concern. Feels kinda weird, but I can still handle it," he said to himself. "Guess I'll just have to push a little harder." The moral and strategic questions only intensified. The rebels debated whether to approach him directly, the Mandalorians weighed the potential for alliance against risk to honor, and the Imperials scrambled to devise methods of control. Goku himself remained curious, cheerful, and fiercely independent, already forming his own assessments of friend, foe, and neutral parties. He had demonstrated both restraint and competence, and in doing so, had shifted the perceptions of every faction present. By nightfall, the outer rim sky shimmered with the glow of distant hyperspace traffic, and Goku stood atop a cliff overlooking the battlefield. The twin moons cast pale light across the landscape, illuminating scattered remnants of droids, stormtroopers, and debris. He flexed his fingers, feeling energy pulse through him in tandem with the faint pull of the Force. The galaxy had proven challenging, but exhilarating. He had learned, adapted, and left a mark without unnecessary devastation, a delicate balance few could achieve. Alara joined him once more, quiet and contemplative. "You have grown more than I anticipated," she said. "But the choices ahead will require judgment, not just strength. Will you act as a catalyst for change, a protector, or merely a force of chaos?" Goku grinned, brushing a hand through his wild hair. I guess we'll see. But one thing's for sure. Wherever I go, I'll do my best to help and fight the bad guys when I need to. That's kinda my style." The galaxy awaited the consequences of his decisions, the shaping of alliances, and the inevitable confrontation with those who would see his power as a threat or a weapon. And Goku, ever eager, looked forward to meeting them all. The day began with an uneasy calm, but Goku knew it would not last. His presence had already disrupted the natural flow of power in the Outer Rim, drawing attention from factions that extended far beyond the barren planet he had crashed upon. Reports from rebel scouts indicated Imperial fleets en route from nearby systems, while whispers of bounty hunters, Mandalorian clans, and even Force-sensitive sects traveled quickly across hyperspace channels. The galaxy was beginning to take notice, and Goku's energy had become the pivot around which multiple political, military, and moral crises rotated. Goku had spent the morning training, leaping from cliff to cliff, his body moving with the precision of a seasoned warrior and the joyous exuberance of someone testing limits. Yet the ambient force tugged differently now, resonating through every pulse of his ki. He experimented, combining bursts of energy with subtle guidance from the unseen currents, realizing that his power could interact, if imperfectly, with the galaxy's natural energy flow. Interesting, he muttered, crouching atop a ridge. Feels kind of like my ki, but weird. But I can work with it. The first major escalation came from the Imperials. Commander Calvaros, growing increasingly desperate, had deployed a fleet of assault droids, heavy artillery platforms, and a squadron of TIE interceptors, converging on the planet in a calculated pincer maneuver. The goal was simple: contain the anomaly and neutralize the threat. They underestimated, however, the adaptability of Goku. With a single leap, he soared into orbit, scattering TIE fighters with controlled blasts, then returned to the surface to dismantle artillery platforms with precision strikes. Each movement was deliberate, showcasing not only raw strength but tactical intelligence, a combination that few in this galaxy could match. Meanwhile, the Mandalorian clan observed from a ridge, impressed by his ability to neutralize multiple threats without unnecessary loss of life. Din Varric, their leader, turned to his warriors. He fights with skill and restraint. This is not mere strength, it is wisdom in motion. Such a warrior may yet earn our respect. The Mandalorians began to consider tentative diplomacy, intrigued by the possibility of aligning with someone whose abilities surpassed even their most elite soldiers. Goku, unaware of the political calculus, merely laughed as he deflected blaster fire midair, weaving through chaos with ease. The rebels, observing from a hidden outpost, debated strategy. Lieutenant Kyle argued fervently for direct communication. We can't risk him siding with the Imperials, even unintentionally. He doesn't understand our politics, but he does understand good and bad. If we can appeal to that, we may gain a powerful ally. Her crew, hesitant but trusting her judgment, prepared to approach him cautiously. Goku, ever perceptive, noticed the rebel ship hovering nearby, its intentions uncertain. He grinned. Hey, you guys want to join the fun, or are you just watching? Then came the moral complication. An Imperial convoy attempting to retreat through the canyon was trapped by the combined disruption of Goku's energy and scattered Mandalorian forces. They were cornered, and surrender would seem logical. Yet the Imperials remained defiant, and Goku sensed fear and desperation radiating from them. Here was a dilemma. Should he eliminate a threat entirely, risking escalation, or find a solution that preserved life while neutralizing danger? True to his nature, Goku opted for the latter. He created energy barriers to contain the convoy, allowing the Imperials to escape without harming anyone unnecessarily. The Mandalorians watched with cautious approval, and even the rebels noted the wisdom in his restraint. Force-sensitive energy pulsed faintly through the area. Jedi Master Alara, observing from a safe distance, reached out subtly, guiding Goku's actions without overt interference. The interplay of ki and force was becoming clearer. Goku could sense the potential for synergy, but had yet to fully grasp the mechanics. You must learn control, she said aloud, knowing he could hear her. Strength alone does not dictate justice. Your choices will shape outcomes beyond this planet. Goku nodded, feeling the weight of her words. Yeah, I get it. Don't worry, I'm not reckless. The battle drew attention from nearby systems. The bounty hunters, regrouping after previous failures, planned a coordinated strike to capture him. Imperial strategists debated more extreme measures, including energy-dampening devices designed to limit his ki output. Rebel intelligence scrambled to anticipate movements and protect him from being manipulated or weaponized. Goku, sensing the multiple converging threats, realized that this galaxy operated under a web of complexities far greater than any battlefield he had faced in his own universe. Goku's adaptability became crucial. He intercepted multiple attacks simultaneously, leveraging his speed and energy projection while factoring in environmental hazards. Rocks tumbled down cliffs as he deflected blasts, sandstorms formed from displaced winds, and the faint pull of the Force subtly guided his trajectory. Each engagement honed his perception, revealing new strategies for cooperation, defense, and ethical combat. He was learning, adapting, and influencing factions without explicit instruction, demonstrating that even in a foreign galaxy, his instincts, morality, and skill could shape outcomes. By nightfall, the chaos had subsided, leaving scorch marks, damaged vehicles, and scattered troops in its wake. Goku stood atop the highest peak, gazing at the stars, feeling the subtle hum of the Force intertwining with his own energy. Ilara approached, voice calm but weighty. "The galaxy will notice your presence soon," she said. "Your choices, your actions, will ripple far beyond this world. Are you prepared for the consequences?" Goku smiled, fists clenched in anticipation. I don't know exactly what's coming, but I'll handle it, and I'll make sure things stay fun and fair." In that moment, the stage was set. Goku had tested his abilities, explored his interaction with the Force, and begun navigating the complex alliances and moral dilemmas of a galaxy unaccustomed to a being of his power. The next moves, by Imperials, Rebels, Mandalorians, and the Stranger himself, would escalate tensions further, forcing decisions that could change the trajectory of the Outer Rim, and perhaps the galaxy itself. The morning light crept over the jagged ridges of the Outer Rim planet, casting elongated shadows across the craters and ruined settlements. Goku stood atop a cliff, his eyes scanning the horizon as energy rippled subtly around him, a combination of his ki and the faint hum of the Force. The previous skirmishes had taught him much. The galaxy was unpredictable. Factions operated with differing moral codes, and power alone did not guarantee victory. He flexed his fingers, feeling the residual strain from deflecting blaster fire and dismantling Imperial assault units. Yet even exhausted, his grin remained, his spirit unbroken. This place is crazy, but I kinda like it," he muttered, eyes glinting with excitement. Below, the remnants of Imperial forces regrouped, forming a cautious defensive line. Commander Kale Varos had spent the night strategizing, determined to contain Goku at any cost. Sensors had picked up additional energy spikes, likely the result of Goku experimenting with his abilities in conjunction with the ambient force, and he recognized that conventional approaches were futile. "We cannot underestimate him again," Varos muttered, voice taut with frustration. "Prepare the energy dampeners. If we cannot defeat him directly, we will limit his capacity. Do not fail." Specialists worked feverishly, deploying modified turrets and drone systems designed to exploit anomalies in key physiology. The Empire's obsession was palpable. Goku was no longer an anomaly. They considered him a potential existential threat. Meanwhile, the Mandalorian contingent observed from a ridge across the canyon, their Beskar armor reflecting the morning sun. Din Varric, their leader, addressed the group with measured authority. "He is a warrior unlike any we have faced. Yet he fights with honor and restraint. This is not merely a matter of power. It is a question of judgment. We must consider whether to engage, ally, or simply watch." The Mandalorians deliberated, weighing the merits of forming a cautious alliance against the possibility that the Stranger's unpredictable nature could disrupt their code and their long-term strategy in the Outer Rim. Goku, sensing multiple presences nearby, crouched low, focusing on the subtle flows of energy around him. He could feel the Force tugging faintly, nudging his perception. Jedi Master Alara Tay had been guiding him subtly, keeping him aware of threats and allies without limiting his autonomy. Her presence was like a quiet undercurrent, informing his instincts without dictating his actions. Someone's around," he said aloud, smirking as he leapt into the air, soaring over a canyon chasm to confront a patrolling squad of stormtroopers. The Empire had grown bolder, but Goku's movements were fluid, precise, and controlled. He dismantled the squad's formation with minimal effort, each strike deliberate yet non-lethal. At the same time, rebel scouts transmitted reports from nearby systems, tracking Goku's movements with a mixture of awe and anxiety. Lieutenant Kaya Rel and her crew debated whether to attempt direct contact. "We can't let him fall into Imperial hands," Kaya insisted. "But we also can't force him to join us. We need to appeal to his sense of right and wrong, and fast." Her voice betrayed both urgency and caution. The rebel cells were aware that a single misstep could escalate the situation beyond their ability to control, and Goku's sheer power made traditional tactics meaningless. The first major moral complication of the day emerged when a convoy of fleeing Imperial soldiers attempted to escape through a canyon system now partially collapsed from previous clashes. Goku perceived the fear radiating from them and hesitated. His instincts were to protect the weak and challenge the strong. But here was a gray zone, surrendering forces, terrified and yet still trained killers. With a controlled energy blast, he sealed the canyon entrances, creating barriers that prevented escape without harming anyone. The Imperials shouted in frustration, weapons raised, yet no harm came to them. Goku landed lightly atop a ridge, grinning. "See? I told you I don't just punch everything I see." The Mandalorians, observing this act, exchanged glances of cautious approval. "He understands balance," Din Varric remarked. "Strength without restraint is meaningless. Perhaps he is a warrior we can respect or even trust." Even as they acknowledged his capability, they remained wary. Goku's independent nature meant he could just as easily ignore their advice or test their limits if provoked. By midday, the Empire escalated further, deploying specialized droids capable of analyzing and countering key energy signatures. Goku's grin widened as he anticipated their moves. He danced through blaster fire and energy nets with unparalleled speed, intercepting drones midair and redirecting them harmlessly toward canyon walls. Each maneuver was a test of skill and improvisation, his body flowing with both instinct and the subtle tug of the Force. It was becoming clear. No conventional technology in the Star Wars galaxy could match him directly, yet he continued to restrain himself, mindful of the consequences. As the day progressed, Goku's presence began to affect the broader political landscape. Reports of a superhuman warrior battling both Imperial forces and bounty hunters reached the attention of nearby criminal syndicates. The Hutt cartel, intrigued by the prospect of controlling or monetizing such a being, began sending emissaries to assess the situation. Simultaneously, smaller independent groups speculated whether this new power could be leveraged against the Empire or become a source of chaos to exploit. The Outer Rim had never seen such an unpredictable variable. Goku, for his part, remained largely unaware of the political ripples. He focused on the immediate challenges, testing his speed, strength, and adaptability against multiple simultaneous threats. At one point, he intercepted a squadron of TIE fighters descending into the canyon with a combination of ki blasts and acrobatic leaps. Energy rippled through the air, scattering debris and creating a shockwave that sent the ships tumbling harmlessly into rocks. He laughed, exhilarated by the test of skill, yet aware that each action carried consequences far beyond the battlefield. Jedi Master Alara observed closely, maintaining a subtle influence over the unfolding chaos. Through the Force, she guided his movements and helped him perceive threats without constraining his autonomy. "Your power is unmatched here," she said quietly, "but every action resonates. Choices, not strength alone, will determine the outcome." Goku nodded, internalizing the lesson even as he danced through the battlefield with a grin. "Got it. I'll make sure I don't go too wild, but I'll still have fun." The rebels made a bold move, sending Lieutenant Kaya Rel and a small strike team to approach Goku directly. They hovered cautiously at a ridge, signaling peaceful intentions. "Hey," Goku called, bounding toward them with the speed of a streaking comet. "You here to fight or hang out?" Kaya swallowed her apprehension. We want to help," she said. "If you're willing, you could change the outcome of this war. But we can't tell you what to do. You have to choose." The moral complexity was heavy, yet Goku sensed their sincerity, smiling warmly. "All right. I like helping people, so I'll think about it. Let's see what's going on." Meanwhile, Imperial reinforcements attempted a coordinated orbital strike, but Goku's speed and ki allowed him to intercept several TIE interceptors before they could descend fully. Drones and artillery fire were redirected harmlessly, a testament to his adaptability and tactical intelligence. Yet he remained conscious of restraint, ensuring that his actions did not harm civilians or the environment unnecessarily. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, his moral compass guided his decisions. The Mandalorians, impressed by his balance of strength, strategy, and ethics, began subtle overtures of diplomacy. Din Varric approached, offering a chance for tentative alliance. "You are a warrior of skill and honor," he said. "If you can maintain restraint, you may find allies here who respect your strength and choices. But know this, the galaxy will test you, and not all will accept your way of doing things." Goku chuckled, flexing. "Sounds like fun. I'm ready for it." As dusk fell, the battlefield quieted. Scattered troops, damaged droids, and displaced wildlife bore witness to the day's chaos. Goku stood atop a ridge, gazing at the stars. The ambient force, subtly interacting with his ki, created a faint resonance that tickled his senses. The galaxy had proven itself complex, challenging, and exhilarating. He had navigated multiple factions, restrained his overwhelming power, and begun forming moral judgments in a world governed by laws and energy systems different from his own. Illara approached, voice calm but imbued with gravity. "You have learned much, but the path ahead will demand judgment beyond instinct or strength. Allies will test you, enemies will exploit you, and the consequences of choice will be far-reaching. Are you prepared to face the full weight of the galaxy?" Goku smiled, fists clenched, eyes alight. I don't know exactly, but I'll handle it. I'll help where I can, fight when I need to, and figure the rest out as I go. That's kinda my style." The stage was set for the next escalation. Imperial obsession, rebel diplomacy, Mandalorian caution, and criminal opportunism all converging on a single point. The stranger who could shift the balance of power across the Outer Rim and beyond. And Goku, ever curious and ever eager, was ready to meet whatever came next, confident in his ability to adapt, fight, and, most importantly, maintain his moral compass in a galaxy that operated under unfamiliar rules. The following morning dawned bright over the jagged canyons of the Outer Rim world, a serene contrast to the escalating chaos that had defined the past several days. Goku stood atop a cliff, his spiky hair catching the sun, eyes scanning the horizon for signs of movement. The previous encounters with Imperial forces, Mandalorian observers, rebel envoys, and bounty hunters had taught him much about this galaxy's complexity, but also about its dangers. Every action had consequences, and Goku's innate sense of justice and joy for combat was now tempered by understanding. Okay, let's see what today has in store," he muttered, bouncing lightly on his toes. Imperial intelligence had grown increasingly desperate. Commander Calvaros, unwilling to allow Goku to continue unchecked, had coordinated a massive, multi-pronged assault. A fleet of TIE interceptors and Star Destroyer support ships now orbited the planet, while specialized energy-dampening turrets were deployed across strategic points to contain or weaken Goku's ki. "If we cannot control him," Varos growled, "we will isolate him. He cannot be allowed to roam freely. He is a threat to the entire Outer Rim." His obsession bordered on mania, and the stakes of the day were clear. One misstep could escalate into full planetary devastation. Meanwhile, the Mandalorian contingent, led by Din Varric, had convened a council to determine their next move. "This warrior demonstrates not only unparalleled strength, but judgment and restraint," Varric remarked. "He is no mere asset to manipulate." If we act now, we risk either alliance or conflict. His choices are his own, and we must respect that. The Mandalorian's approach to strategy, honed over generations of combat, favored measured observation over rash engagement, yet the opportunity to gain such a formidable ally lingered in their minds. Goku, sensing multiple presences nearby, crouched and focused, feeling the faint tug of the Force like a gentle breeze guiding his steps. He could sense the Imperials, the Rebels, the Mandalorians, and even distant bounty hunters converging toward his location. Each faction carried its own intentions, some clear, others hidden, but the moral complexity of the situation thrilled him. Here was a galaxy not just to fight in, but to understand, adapt to, and influence. This is going to be fun," he said aloud, leaping toward a narrow canyon entrance where Imperial scouts had gathered. The clash was immediate. Goku's speed allowed him to intercept incoming fire with controlled bursts of energy, deflecting blaster bolts and dismantling assault drones without harming personnel unnecessarily. The Imperials, frustrated by the ineffectiveness of conventional weapons, attempted coordinated maneuvers, but Goku adapted instantly, weaving through fire with a combination of ki projection and instinctual spatial awareness influenced subtly by the Force. The Mandalorians observed, impressed by the precision and restraint displayed in the face of overwhelming odds. As the skirmish escalated, the rebels attempted to communicate directly with Goku. Lieutenant Kaya Rel signaled from a hovercraft, projecting a visual hologram. "Goku," she called, "we need your help, not as a weapon, but as a protector. The Empire is relentless, and if we can convince you to act, we might prevent countless casualties across multiple systems." Goku landed gracefully, considering the message. His moral instincts aligned with their plea, though he remained fiercely independent. All right, I like helping people, but I don't just follow orders. I do what's right, and I do it my way. Imperial reinforcements attempted an orbital strike, but Goku's speed and ki manipulation made him nearly untouchable. He leapt through the canyon walls, redirecting energy blasts harmlessly into empty spaces, scattering debris, and dismantling drones mid-flight. Even the Mandalorians nodded in recognition of his mastery. This was a being who could operate at the peak of his power, while maintaining ethical control. The moral complexity intensified when a small group of Imperial cadets became trapped beneath collapsing rock formations caused by the skirmishes. They were inexperienced, panicked, yet technically enemy combatants. Goku hesitated. His instinct was to protect life, but he understood that showing mercy could create consequences with the higher echelons of the Empire. After a moment of consideration, he used precise bursts of energy to stabilize the rocks and guide the cadets to safety. You guys gotta be more careful," he joked lightly, though his actions spoke volumes. The Mandalorians watched in muted approval, the rebels in cautious admiration, and the Imperials seethed with frustration. The events drew attention beyond the immediate battlefield. Reports of a superhuman, morally conscious warrior reached huts, criminal syndicates, and independent factions. Many saw opportunity, others saw threat. While Goku remained focused on immediate challenges, the wider political and strategic implications of his presence began to unfold. He was no longer a simple combatant. He was a variable that could shift balances of power across systems, and every faction began adjusting their calculations accordingly. Jedi Master Alara Te observed from a hidden outpost, guiding subtly through the Force. She recognized that Goku's instinctual morality, combined with his raw power, could be a force for balance or chaos, depending on the choices he made. "He understands more than I expected," she murmured, sensing his restraint and growing comprehension of the galaxy's moral web. But the galaxy tests all who enter it. He must learn the weight of choice, not just the thrill of battle. Goku's interactions with the Mandalorians had matured into a tentative mutual respect. Dinveric approached him during a lull in combat. "You fight with honor, yet without rigid adherence to code," he said. "We respect that. If you choose to ally with us, understand that loyalty, judgment, and honor govern our actions. Your strength alone does not dictate your worth in this galaxy." Goku grinned. Sounds fair. I'll keep that in mind. I like helping folks, and I like strong friends. Guess we'll see where it goes. The Imperials, growing increasingly desperate, unleashed their final gambit for the day. A specialized energy containment field designed to suppress ki and other energy emissions. Goku sensed the shift in energy patterns instantly and adapted mid-air, redirecting his energy and using the ambient force subtly to counteract the suppression. The display of adaptability, intelligence, and raw power left both Mandalorians and rebels awestruck, while the Imperials realized that conventional containment was futile. Commander Varro's obsession had only intensified, and he vowed to escalate further. As dusk settled, the battlefield quieted temporarily. Scattered vehicles, damaged drones, and scorched terrain bore witness to the day's escalating conflicts. Goku stood atop a ridge, observing the interplay of factions below. The ambient force pulsed faintly through him, mingling with his ki, creating a resonance that was both thrilling and instructive. He had navigated moral dilemmas, tested alliances, and demonstrated restraint and mastery in a galaxy far more complex than his own. Ilara approached silently, voice calm but weighty. Tomorrow, your choices will face greater tests. Allies will tempt you, enemies will exploit your power, and the consequences of your actions will resonate across the galaxy. Are you prepared? Goku clenched his fists, eyes bright with anticipation. I don't know exactly, but I'll handle it. I'll help where I can, fight when I need to, and figure the rest out as I go. That's kinda my style. The stage was set for the culmination of multiple conflicts. Imperial obsession, rebel diplomacy, Mandalorian caution, and criminal opportunism all converging on the presence of a single, extraordinary being. Goku, confident and curious, was ready to meet the next escalation, prepared to push the limits of both power and moral judgment in a galaxy unaccustomed to a force of his magnitude. The Outer Rim planet lay shrouded in an uneasy twilight as Goku surveyed the battlefield from the jagged cliffs above. Over the past week, he had encountered nearly every faction in the sector, Imperials, Mandalorians, rebels, bounty hunters, and each engagement had taught him more about the galaxy's rules, ethics, and technological constraints. Now, the culmination of all these encounters approached. Imperial forces, desperate and escalating, had consolidated into a massive offensive. Reinforcements streamed in from nearby systems, coordinated by Commander Varros, whose obsession with neutralizing Goku had reached a fever pitch. Goku felt the intensity of multiple energy signatures converging on him. The ambient force pulsed subtly, guiding his instincts as he assessed the situation. He could see the Imperial Star Destroyer in orbit, launching attack pods, TIE squadrons diving toward the planet, and energy-dampening arrays activating across the battlefield. The Mandalorians had taken up defensive positions along strategic ridges, while the rebels, though scattered, prepared for support. Even distant bounty hunters and criminal factions were drawn to the chaos, seeking opportunity. Every move mattered, and every decision would resonate far beyond the planet. Leaping from cliff to cliff with breathtaking speed, Goku intercepted the first wave of TIE fighters. Blaster fire and laser turrets lit the canyons like fireworks, yet he moved with effortless precision, deflecting attacks and dismantling assault drones without harming personnel unnecessarily. His ki surged, resonating faintly with the force as if acknowledging the moral weight of his actions. Each strike was calculated, each maneuver deliberate, a perfect fusion of instinct, adaptability, and ethics. All right, bring it on, Goku muttered, eyes scanning for the next threat. On the surface, Imperial walkers advanced, supported by heavy artillery. Goku leapt into the fray, energy blasts scattering armor and weaponry with surgical precision. He avoided harming those surrendering or fleeing, demonstrating restraint that drew the cautious admiration of the Mandalorians. Din Varrick, observing from a ridge, nodded approvingly. Strength with judgment. Perhaps this is the warrior our galaxy needs, he murmured. Yet even as he spoke, the Mandalorians remained wary, knowing that Goku's independent nature meant that alliances could shift without warning. The rebels attempted direct communication amidst the chaos. Lieutenant Kaya Rel projected a hologram, shouting over the roar of battle. Goku, you could save countless systems today if you act with us. But you must choose. Your strength alone can tip the balance. Goku landed lightly atop a ruined droid, assessing the message. All right, I want to help, but I don't just follow orders. I do what's right, and I do it my way, he responded, his grin unwavering even as explosions rocked the canyon below. Meanwhile, Imperials initiated their most desperate measure, an experimental energy suppression field designed to weaken his ki and contain his movements. The field pulsed across the battlefield, drawing energy like a sponge, but Goku's adaptability and subtle resonance with the Force allowed him to counteract it mid-flight. He danced through blaster fire and energy nets, redirecting projectiles harmlessly into the terrain, dismantling drones mid-air, and protecting those who were at risk. Each action was a display of mastery, intelligence, and moral consideration, proof that raw power could be wielded responsibly. Part B. As the engagement reached its zenith, moral and strategic stakes intertwined. A small squad of Imperials became trapped beneath collapsing debris, terrified cadets untrained for battle. Goku paused, sensing their fear and desperation. He could eliminate them without effort, but instinct and conscience guided a different path. With precise ki bursts, he stabilized the wreckage and guided them to safety. The Mandalorians observed, impressed by the combination of restraint and judgment, while the rebels whispered among themselves, recognizing the profound ethical weight of his decisions. Even the Imperials seethed in frustration, aware that conventional intimidation would not sway this extraordinary warrior. The final escalation arrived when a fleet of bounty hunters attempted to flank Goku, aiming to capture or kill him for profit. Their advanced tracking and weapons technology posed a challenge, but Goku's mastery of speed, energy, and instinct allowed him to anticipate and counter each move. He disabled targeting systems with precise blasts, redirected projectiles, and disarmed opponents without unnecessary harm. Each encounter reinforced his reputation as a near-mythical presence, capable of immense destruction, but guided by a personal moral compass. Above the battlefield, Jedi Master Alara Te observed, her presence a subtle influence, guiding Goku without overriding his autonomy. He understands restraint, judgment, and the consequences of power, she whispered. But the galaxy's tests are far from over. The choices he makes now will reverberate across sectors. Goku felt her guidance as a faint pulse through the Force, integrating it into his instincts as he moved with unmatched precision. He began to understand that raw power alone was insufficient. Wisdom, ethics, and adaptability determined true mastery. The Mandalorians, witnessing his actions, initiated cautious diplomacy. Din Varrick approached Goku during a brief pause in combat. "You are unlike any warrior we have encountered," he said. "If you choose to ally with us, understand that honor, loyalty, and judgment govern our actions. Your strength alone does not dictate worth in this galaxy." Goku grinned. "Sounds fair. I help where I can, fight when I need to, and figure the rest out as I go. That's my style." Imperial forces, relentless and increasingly desperate, attempted their final gambit: planetary-scale energy nets and orbital strikes. Goku, sensing the convergence of technology, force energy, and moral weight, adapted instantly. He redirected energy with his ki, used the subtle Force resonance to anticipate attacks, and protected both rebel and civilian positions. The outer rim sky lit with energy bursts and debris, a spectacular display of combat mastery and ethical precision. As night fell, the battlefield quieted, leaving ruins, scattered troops, and shattered drones as testament to the day's climactic engagements. Goku stood atop the highest cliff, observing the interplay of factions below. His moral compass, sense of honor, and mastery of ki and subtle Force interaction had guided him through an impossible convergence of conflicts. The galaxy had proven complex, challenging, and exhilarating, and Goku had navigated it with strength, intelligence, and conscience. Alara approached, voice calm but weighty. "The consequences of your choices will ripple far beyond this world. Allies will test you, enemies will exploit your power, and the galaxy will remember your actions. Are you prepared for what comes next? Goku clenched his fists, eyes bright with determination and excitement. I don't know exactly, but I'll handle it. I'll help where I can, fight when I need to, and figure the rest out as I go. That's kinda my style. The stage was set for resolution. Imperial obsession, rebel diplomacy, Mandalorian caution, and criminal opportunism converging on a single extraordinary being who could change the balance of power across the Outer Rim, and perhaps the galaxy itself. Goku, confident, curious, and unwavering, was ready to meet the consequences of his actions, prepared to push the limits of both power and morality in a universe unaccustomed to a force of his magnitude. The Outer Rim world lay cloaked in a pre-dawn haze, the jagged cliffs and cratered plains glowing faintly under twin suns barely cresting the horizon. Goku crouched on a ridge, feeling the air vibrate with a collective tension of every faction converging upon the planet. Imperial forces, desperate and resolute, had mobilized their full array of experimental weaponry, while orbital star destroyers cast long shadows over the terrain, each vessel bristling with turbolasers and interceptor squadrons. Rebel ships hovered cautiously above, ready to coordinate strikes, but unable to match the sheer destructive power arrayed by the Empire. The Mandalorians held strategic positions, their Beskar-clad silhouettes reflecting the morning light as they prepared for a battle they could neither predict nor fully control. Even the bounty hunters and criminal operatives lurking in the Outer Rim had sensed the escalation, drawn by the chance for profit or survival. Goku exhaled deeply, the weight of the coming confrontation settling in his chest. This was no longer a mere series of skirmishes or tests. Every action, every decision would have consequences for countless lives, for the balance of power in the Outer Rim, and perhaps even for the galaxy as a whole. His ki pulsed faintly, harmonizing with the ambient force that Alara Te had subtly guided him to perceive. The sensation was like a current beneath his skin, whispering of danger, of choice, and of responsibility. All right, he muttered, fists clenched and eyes blazing with focus. Time to see what everyone's really made of. Imperial forces move first. Columns of AT-ATS and AT-STS advanced across the canyon floor, their heavy treads pounding the earth. Specialized energy-dampening arrays activated across key locations, designed to weaken Goku's ki output and restrict his mobility. Above, TIE interceptors swarmed like metallic hornets, while star destroyers in orbit launched coordinated assault pods meant to isolate and contain him. Commander Kale Varos, orchestrating the operation from the bridge of a nearby star destroyer, gritted his teeth. No conventional tactics work against him. He is beyond expectation. If we cannot contain him now, this Outer Rim sector, and perhaps more, will be lost to chaos. Prepare orbital bombardment. Prepare contingency protocols. We cannot fail. His obsession with eliminating the anomaly radiated through every command. Goku assessed the battlefield with a calm intensity, his mind processing threats in multiple layers. Imperial walkers below, orbital fighters, energy nets, rebel positions, Mandalorian contingents, and the ambient force threading through everything. He leapt into action, vaulting from cliff to cliff with the grace of a predatory bird. Ki flared along his body as he moved, deflecting blaster bolts midair, dismantling hovering drones with pinpoint energy blasts, and redirecting projectiles harmlessly into the canyon walls. He avoided collateral damage wherever possible, aware that even minor indiscretions could tip the delicate moral balance he had carefully maintained throughout his journey in this galaxy. The Mandalorians, observing from strategic ridges, exchanged glances of cautious awe. Din Varric, noting Goku's restraint and efficiency, whispered to his commanders, "Observe his movements carefully. He is not a tool to be wielded, nor a weapon to be feared. He fights with discernment and judgment. Our role is to support, not dictate. Respect his choices or risk disaster." Goku sensed their gaze, nodding subtly in acknowledgement as he vaulted over a collapsing ridge, intercepting an orbital pod before it could impact the canyon floor. His speed was blinding, and his awareness of energy flows, both his own and the force around him, allowed him to anticipate every movement with uncanny precision. The first major moral test of the day emerged when a group of Imperial cadets, inexperienced and panicked, became trapped beneath the rubble of a collapsing command bunker. Their blasters were pointed frantically in every direction, fear radiating like a tangible force. Goku landed softly beside the wreckage, scanning the debris. He could easily obliterate the obstruction with a single energy blast, eliminating the threat entirely. But instinct and conscience guided him elsewhere. Carefully, he channeled precise ki pulses, stabilizing the wreckage and creating a pathway for the cadets to escape. Their eyes widened in astonishment, disbelief mingling with relief. Even Din Varric, observing from above, allowed a rare expression of approval to cross his visor. The rebels seized the opportunity to communicate directly, projecting a hologram mid-battle. Lieutenant Kaya Rel's voice cut through the chaos. "Goku, you could turn the tide of this entire sector. The Empire cannot be allowed to exploit your power. Act with us, and countless lives can be saved." Goku considered the message, grinning. "All right, I'll help, but I don't just follow orders. I do what's right my way." With that, he launched into the heart of the battlefield, balancing raw power, moral judgment, and tactical brilliance. Orbital bombardments began, streaking down from star destroyers. But Goku's mastery of speed and ki allowed him to intercept each pod mid-descent, neutralizing threats without causing unnecessary destruction. His movements were fluid, almost artistic, each action calculated yet instinctual. Blaster fire and energy suppression arrays collided with his energy, dissipating harmlessly around him, a testament to his adaptability and growing attunement with the Force. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, he displayed complete ethical restraint, focusing destructive potential only where necessary to neutralize imminent threats. From above, Jedi Master Alara Te observed, her voice calm, but imbued with quiet authority. "He is exceptional," she murmured, feeling the subtle intertwining of ki and Force energy. Yet power alone is meaningless. Judgment, restraint, and conscience define the true measure of impact. His choices will reverberate far beyond this battlefield. Goku felt her presence like a gentle current through his energy, guiding without restricting, encouraging awareness of consequences without stifling instinct. He had come to understand that strength, though unparalleled, was only part of the equation. The moral weight of action carried equal importance. The Imperials, growing desperate, deployed an experimental planetary-scale energy net, designed to ensnare Goku and allow coordinated orbital strikes to eliminate him. He anticipated the energy currents, leaping with blinding speed through the shifting fields, dispersing projectiles and neutralizing droids midair. Each movement displayed not only raw skill, but also moral consideration. He shielded fleeing rebels and civilians, avoided collateral destruction, and protected those too inexperienced to defend themselves. The Mandalorians, initially skeptical, began to whisper among themselves, acknowledging that Goku's combination of power and conscience was unparalleled, even among the greatest warriors they had encountered. Even as Goku continued to dismantle Imperial machinery, he was acutely aware of the wider implications. The Outer Rim factions, rebels, Mandalorians, bounty hunters, and syndicates, watched closely, their perception of him shaping future alliances, enmities, and the balance of power across the sector. His actions today would define not only his place in this galaxy, but also the strategic and moral trajectories of every faction within range. Every choice carried weight, every act resonated beyond immediate survival. By midday, the confrontation had escalated to a planetary-scale engagement. Imperial walkers and droid battalions clashed with Mandalorian and Rebel defensive lines, while orbital star destroyers unleashed bombardments that turned canyons into rivers of molten rock. Goku moved through the chaos with superhuman speed, seamlessly integrating ki, instinct, and subtle Force awareness to neutralize threats while preserving life wherever possible. Each move was a dance of power and judgment, balancing immediate tactical needs with long-term ethical considerations. The moral stakes intensified when Imperial soldiers, cornered and disoriented, attempted to surrender amidst the chaos. Goku paused, observing their fear and vulnerability. His innate sense of right guided him. He could have annihilated them in seconds, but instead he used controlled energy pulses to disarm and immobilize them safely. The Mandalorians, observing from above, were impressed by the subtlety and restraint displayed. Din Varric murmured, "Strength without judgment is nothing. This is true mastery." The rebels whispered among themselves, awe evident in their voices. Even Commander Varros, watching from his command bridge, seethed with frustration as his carefully orchestrated offensive faltered. Bounty hunters attempted a coordinated flanking maneuver, hoping to exploit perceived weaknesses in Goku's defenses. Yet his adaptive instinct, honed over days of navigating this alien galaxy, allowed him to anticipate their moves. He dismantled advanced tracking drones midair, redirected plasma projectiles, and neutralized combatants without permanent harm. His actions became a spectacle of precision and ethics, a demonstration of power exercised responsibly. The final Imperial Gambit arrived as orbital bombardments converged with ground-based energy nets. Goku, integrating the subtle cues of the Force with his ki, redirected every attack with surgical precision, protecting rebel and civilian positions while neutralizing Imperial threats. The canyon skies erupted in a spectacle of light and energy, each movement calculated yet instinctual, reflecting mastery over power and moral responsibility alike. The Mandalorians, convinced of his integrity, approached cautiously. Din Varric offered an alliance tempered by respect for independence. "You are unlike any warrior we have encountered. If you choose to act with us, honor, judgment, and loyalty will govern our actions. Your strength alone does not dictate your place in this galaxy." Goku grinned, fists clenched. "Sounds fair. I'll fight where I must, help where I can, and figure out the rest as I go. That's my style." As night fell, the battlefield quieted. Imperial troops either surrendered or retreated. Damaged droids lay scattered across the terrain, and the planet bore witness to the extraordinary culmination of Goku's journey through moral dilemmas, factional politics, and unparalleled combat. His decisions had shaped the outcome not through sheer power alone, but through restraint, judgment, and ethical mastery. The galaxy had learned that a single individual, even from another universe, could influence destiny not through fear or domination, but through intelligence, morality, and courage. Ilara approached silently, her voice carrying the weight of the Force itself. "Your choices will echo across the galaxy," she said. "You have proven that power without conscience is meaningless. Others will follow, emulate, or challenge you. The consequences of your actions are only beginning." Goku clenched his fists, eyes shining with determination. "I don't know exactly what's next, but I'll handle it. I'll fight, I'll help, and I'll figure out the rest as I go." The galaxy had shifted that day. Imperial obsession, rebel diplomacy, Mandalorian caution, and criminal opportunism had all converged on a single extraordinary being who had proven that strength tempered by judgment could reshape destinies. Goku, confident, curious, and morally unwavering, had become a legend not just for his power, but for the choices that defined him. The stage was set for new conflicts, alliances, and challenges, yet the Outer Rim, and perhaps the galaxy beyond, would never forget the warrior who had arrived from another universe to change everything. The Outer Rim world had fallen into a tenuous, almost eerie calm, a stark contrast to the chaos that had defined the last several days. The once jagged canyons, now scarred by craters, molten rock, and shattered machinery, bore the silent testimony of the unprecedented convergence of factions and power. Goku stood atop the highest ridge, the twin suns of the planet casting long shadows across the ravaged terrain. His hair was windswept, clothes scorched in places, yet his eyes gleamed with the thrill of battle and the solemn weight of responsibility. The clash had not been merely a test of strength. It had been a crucible for judgment, morality, and the intricate calculus of consequence. Goku reflected on the choices that had defined the past days. He had faced Imperial forces that operated with ruthless precision, deploying technology capable of leveling entire sections of the planet. He had navigated orbital strikes from star destroyers, advanced energy suppression arrays, and legions of trained soldiers. Yet the greatest challenge had not been physical. It had been moral. The cadets trapped beneath the rubble, the civilians caught in crossfire, the criminals and opportunists seeking to exploit the chaos, all demanded a judgment beyond raw power. Each act of restraint, each careful calculation to preserve life while neutralizing threats, had been a deliberate decision, and each had rippled outward, subtly reshaping the perceptions and strategies of the galaxy's factions. The Mandalorians, who had initially observed him with cautious skepticism, now regarded him as a figure of unparalleled skill and wisdom. Din Varric and his contingent had witnessed Goku neutralize threats with precision while sparing lives whenever possible. This had altered their understanding of combat and honor. Strength alone was no longer the defining metric. Judgment, conscience, and the ability to adapt were equally vital. The Mandalorians would carry tales of this warrior for generations, shaping not only their tactical approaches, but their philosophical views on what it meant to be a warrior. Goku had not merely fought alongside them. He had forced an evolution of their understanding. The rebels, too, felt the weight of Goku's influence. Lieutenant Kaya Rel and her fellow strategists observed how the outcome of the conflict had been transformed not through overwhelming firepower alone, but through intelligent, ethical intervention. The rebel alliance, stretched thin and often reliant on guerrilla tactics, now recognized that the presence of a being who combined strength, judgment, and moral clarity could reshape engagements across sectors. Goku's decisions had saved countless lives that would have been lost in the indiscriminate brutality of the Empire. They saw him not as a tool or weapon, but as a force of conscience, a being whose moral compass guided the deployment of power with precision and humanity. Even the Empire, though unwilling to admit it, had been forced to reconsider their calculations. Commander Kale Varos and his colleagues, humiliated by their inability to subdue a single combatant despite overwhelming resources, were left to grapple with the limits of their technological supremacy. Goku had demonstrated that a being who understood the weight of choice, who wielded power with both intelligence and conscience, could outmatch even the most meticulously organized military apparatus. The ramifications would echo through imperial corridors of command, sowing doubt and uncertainty among officers conditioned to believe in the invincibility of order and fear. A new understanding of power, one that respected moral complexity, had been introduced, and its implications would not be ignored. The criminal syndicates, huts, and bounty hunters lurking at the edges of the conflict had also taken note. Many had come seeking opportunity, believing that chaos and destruction could be exploited for profit. They had underestimated Goku. His presence had shown that there were forces beyond manipulation, entities whose choices could not be coerced by credits or fear. Some syndicates would adapt, forming tentative alliances or choosing neutrality. Others would seek revenge or testing of limits, but all would now operate with an awareness that a singular being, independent, morally grounded, and extraordinarily powerful, could decisively influence outcomes. Throughout all this, Goku had also learned, in profound ways, about the galaxy itself. Its mechanics, its philosophies, and its currents of the Force had challenged him to evolve his perception and methods. The ambient force, subtle yet persistent, had guided him in ways he was only beginning to comprehend. Unlike his universe, where physical and spiritual mastery had been largely self-contained, this galaxy demanded integration with unseen energies, attentiveness to morality on a planetary and galactic scale, and an understanding of factions whose motives were complex and often contradictory. Every key-infused leap, every redirected blast, every restraint exercised in the face of destruction was simultaneously a lesson in responsibility and a test of character. As he surveyed the battlefield, Goku reflected on the broader consequences of his actions. The imperial occupation of the Outer Rim had been challenged not merely by the rebels or Mandalorians, but by the intervention of an outsider who had forced every faction to reconsider strategy, alliances, and ethical priorities. Civilian populations, who had previously been pawns in a war of power, had survived due to his interventions, and the narrative of this sector had been irrevocably altered. the story of one extraordinary individual, arriving from another universe entirely, had become a catalyst for systemic shifts across political, military, and cultural structures. He also understood that his presence had changed the very nature of conflict. The galaxy had learned that strength without judgment was insufficient, and morality without capability could be powerless. Goku had embodied the synthesis of both, teaching lessons not through speeches or proclamations, but through decisive, conscientious action in the heat of battle. Jedi Master Alara Te's subtle guidance had been instrumental, but the responsibility had always rested with Goku. He had chosen restraint when it mattered, judgment when confronted with impossible options, and courage when indecision could have been deadly. The galaxy, in turn, would measure power differently going forward. And yet, despite the victories, there was a sense of ongoing tension. The Empire, humiliated but not destroyed, would regroup. Mandalorian clans, impressed yet cautious, would continue to navigate the complexities of honor and loyalty. The rebels, strengthened by the example of Goku's ethical and tactical mastery, would seek ways to integrate such principles into their ongoing struggle. Criminal networks would calculate carefully, and planetary populations would whisper tales of the stranger who had saved lives with strength tempered by conscience. The consequences of Goku's presence were far from over. They would unfold across systems, influencing decisions, alliances, and conflicts for years to come. Goku himself felt the weight of legacy, even as he experienced the exhilaration of accomplishment. He had adapted, fought, and learned, mastering not only his extraordinary abilities, but the subtle moral and philosophical dynamics of an alien galaxy. His understanding of combat had deepened to include the ethics of action, the implications of restraint, and the strategic calculus of morality. The galaxy had challenged him, and in turn, he had reshaped the galaxy, not as a conqueror, but as a catalyst for reflection, respect, and balance. In the quiet aftermath, Goku allowed himself a moment of introspection. The scars on the terrain mirrored the trials he had endured. The surviving factions mirrored the lessons he had learned about power, judgment, and consequence. The Outer Rim world, once a site of imminent destruction and chaos, had been transformed by the presence of one extraordinary individual who operated at the intersection of morality and unmatched strength. He had arrived as an anomaly, as a stranger from another universe, and left as a legend whose influence would ripple through the galaxy for decades. Even as he prepared to depart the planet, Goku understood that his journey was far from over. Other systems, other factions, and perhaps even other threats would test him, demanding the same combination of power, judgment, and ethical clarity. He would encounter challenges that could not be solved with strength alone, dilemmas where moral decision-making carried as much weight as ki or combat skill. And yet, he was ready. The galaxy had proven itself worthy of exploration, of guidance, and of the unique brand of heroism he could offer. In the end, Goku's legacy was not simply defined by the destruction he had averted or the enemies he had defeated. It was defined by his choices, the lives he had preserved, the ethical standards he had upheld in the heat of chaos, and the profound influence he had exerted on every faction that witnessed his actions. Mandalorian, rebel, imperial, and criminal alike would carry memories of the extraordinary warrior who had acted independently, ethically, and decisively. He had become a benchmark for power and morality alike, a symbol of what it meant to wield immense strength responsibly in a galaxy defined by conflict and nuance. And as Goku prepared to leap into the void once more, returning to hyperspace or perhaps another system in need of balance, he carried with him not only the lessons of battle, but the moral imperatives of a galaxy that now knew the presence of a hero who could act without compromise. His journey, far from over, would continue to shape the destinies of countless beings, leaving a trail of inspiration, hope, and a reminder that true strength lies in restraint, judgment, and the courage to act rightly even when power tempts otherwise. The galaxy had changed, and so had Goku,